Hey guys, so I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think the anime could do it, but the emotions, they're back, guys. After watching this episode, they're back in full force. Uh, okay, so jumping right into this episode, we get the big reveal. Valkyrie is dead. And if I'm being honest, I didn't believe the anime would be able to capture the same emotions I felt from reading this in the manga. And while it is slightly diluted from anime having the disadvantage of needing to fill a 23-minute runtime, it's still, even within that time frame, it still made the most of what it was working with and used every bit of that time to maximum effect. Like, this episode was the most visually and emotionally beautiful out of all the episodes this season, and in some respects, again, even kind of outdid the manga. But what's more important to talk about here is the emotional context and understand, despite all Valkyrie had done for Homura, despite practically raising her, teaching her the ways of the sword and of how to live your life, she still couldn't help but feel her origins and nature as an android made her inadequate to what she felt her real mother could offer her. So she left Homura to find her mother, not realizing that her mother, Kurenai Kogetsu, would turn out to be the most evil, sadistic piece of shit in the Sakura cosmos, or one of them at the very least. Whereas, on the other hand, you have Homura, who back then and even now, despite always disputing that Valkyrie was her master, not her mother, the one constant was that Valkyrie always felt that she was always the only one at the time who was in her life, the one constant in her life who always was there to who cared about her. And just the fact that Valkyrie even went to such lengths at all in itself instantly debunks her thoughts of inadequacy. Because even taking out the time they spent together, just the fact that Valkyrie went to so much lengths to find Kurenai, when Kurenai herself didn't even bother to look for her own daughter, shows that right up until the end, Valkyrie was more of Homura's mother than her actual mother. But for Homura, I don't think it was until seeing Valkyrie's body, staring back at her with that smile on her face, that Homura realized just how much she saw Valkyrie as her mother, and just how much Valkyrie had done for her. Like, trust me, I say this from experience. You'll never realize or understand how important a parent is to you until they're gone, and that's the exact emotion that I relate heavily to Kurenai's emotions here, because that's exactly how I've felt more often than not. If you've seen my video history, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, let's just say Valkyrie's emotions in this moment are a lot more relatable than you think. Which, yeah, let's talk about Kurenai, because the saddest part about this is that Valkyrie had every intention of returning to Homura the moment she found Kurenai, but what she couldn't have possibly accounted for is what kind of person Kurenai would become. Like, by simply offering her aid during that time, Kurenai did look genuinely remorseful and grateful for Valkyrie's help, but to find out it was all a mask truly does show. Again, Kurenai did not care for her daughter even when she was born. Like, even when Kurenai had birthed Homura herself, gave birth to her, and offered her life in this world. At the end of the day, all she cared about was herself, was her money, was what could she get monetary value out of her life, kind of thing. And whereas Valkyrie, right up until the end, fought to return to Homura, and even went from, I think, choosing to reunite with Homura with her mother, to trying to keep her from learning the awful truth. But ultimately Valkyrie Prince Valkyrie couldn't keep either promise, which again goes. I know I'm kind of repeating myself here, but it goes to show what a piece of shit Kurenai is. But also the idea of just how much an environment can warp a person. Because even though it wasn't explicitly said, it's very heavily implied Kurenai basically sold her body for money during the time that she was a slave. So even after ending up as a slave, never in her entire life did she pretty much once think of her daughter. She could only ever think about was money. Like, even when we see Valkyrie approach her saying that she's going to bring her back to Homura, she said, I have my daughter. It was only that instance where, for a very brief moment, that was the moment where the veil kind of slipped, and you could tell that only in that instance did she even remember she had a daughter almost. Like she, like with, like with, like with Kurenai, she hated all she could ever think about was money. She hated the very idea of being poor, and she truly lived her life caring about no one but herself. Whereas Valkyrie, even in her final moments, could do nothing but think about Homura, and really, I think Valkyrie's only regrets in life are not being able to return to her and never saying "I love you." But yeah, it's oh god, this episode got me just as much heated as it did when I read it in the manga. And honestly, I know there are going to be people who criticize this episode for not caring, for basically people not caring about Valkyrie's death or Homura's sadness, but in that sense, it is what makes it relatable in a sense, because honestly, this is the most. In some ways, you could say that Mashima's depiction of Valkyrie's death is the most real depiction of death ever. The sad reality about death, when even in anime and manga, is that it doesn't happen in some big, flashy, dramatic way. I mean, don't get me wrong. With this episode, there is still that big, flashy, dramatic death, but death in itself, it happens unexpectedly, without even the proper time to properly process. It happens just without warning, and your emotions are forced to catch up to you and make you realize you're never going to see that person again. All you can do is adapt it and remember, and force your mind to remember all the memories you have with that person, because that's all you can hold on to in that moment. It really, honestly, whatever crap we give Mashima, this is kind of his most realistic depiction of death, honestly. Also, watching this from the anime's perspective now makes me realize how much I undervalued Shiki's emotional growth in this moment, because when he saw Valkyrie, he didn't say a word. He just silent and let Homura have her silence in order to grieve for who was essentially her mother. And it's because Shiki knows what it's like to grieve for the ones you lose in your life, and it's because he knows what that's like. He knows what it's like. It doesn't matter if they're an android or a human. It's in little moments like this where I truly find it unfair to compare Shiki to Natsu, because yes, well, they both have the same bombastic personalities. Shiki, in some respects, is more emotionally mature, honestly, and understands a lot more of what it's like to lose someone, I think. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much. But yeah, guys, that's and obviously after all that emotion, after the end of the episode, where 85-90% of it was emotional heartbreak, we pretty much cut back to Kurenai and Shiki basically storming the castle, as it were, just crashing headfirst into Kurenai's headquarters and saying, "I'm dragging your ass back to Homura, one way, whether you like it or not." And even in that moment, she's like, "Oh, is Homura desperate to see me?" Or like, such condescension. I cannot wait to see her. I cannot wait to see Shiki crush this bitch. Like, it is going to be so fun to watch. And honestly, looking back now, I think I kind of like. Honestly, I'm gonna say something really, really insane. Honestly, I'm gonna say something out of the norm, believe it or not. But looking back, Kurenai is kind of a much more detestable villain to me than Draken Joe. Honestly, yes, I said that. Like, don't get me wrong, Draken Joe is an extremely is the villain that kind of broke the mold on this series a bit. I don't deny that part, but as far as the most detestable villain between Draken Joe and Kurenai, I gotta kind of go with Kurenai on this one. Like, this bitch has just no emotion, just has no sympathy, no empathy for anyone. She's just like, is Kurenai wanting to see me? Like, you manipulative little bitch. Like, yeah. But yeah, I cannot wait for that to happen. And yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoy the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll. Share the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, all.